models and what have you. And it says the following. What do we mean? Let's go back to basics. What do we mean? What are not-for-profits? And I'm literally reading from it. It says, these organizations, that's the profit ones, are organizations which, small writing here, go and make profit. They earn money for their owners, and the profits are earned must be used for the organization's objectives. That's profit organizations. Not-for-profits can hire and pay staff, as do profit organizations. Many NFPs utilize volunteers to control costs and don't have owners. As for profit organizations, rather they are owned by themselves, as not-for-profits are run by a board of directors. Another difference is that NFPs typically apply for tax exemption status. This status grants the organization exemption from most of the forms of taxation, as a main type of taxation is typically avoided by tax-exempt organizations. NFP status also enables them to obtain funding such as grants which they are eligible for. That's the focus. So the two types are very similar. It's the end game that's the difference. So we've got to remind ourselves constantly that being effective, managing well, having good leadership, scanning the environment, and all the other bits and pieces are the same. The only difference is that we do not, and I mean NFPs now, do not get hammered by, dictated to by these hungry share owners who demand every single cent for themselves. And therefore we've got to virtually sell our souls to earn money and profits for them. This is not the objective of the NFPs. That's where they differ. But being efficient, doing things very well, same for both, just in passing. And there was quite a bit about that as a discussion from some of your previous courses, and particularly the leading teams one. And I've taken that from there because that was forwarded to me. Now, what have we got here? The plane has taken off again, and it's doing another circle. It's going a little bit higher. And once in a while now, where we are heading now, we grab the binoculars and do a bit of sightseeing and focus on what's down there. More specifically on some bits as we pass by. And that's the whole idea here. Where are the really important bits which we need to just pay a bit of attention to? So let's go and have a look. Now, I'm literally going to just go down here and make it easier. We're going to talk and focus on three models. By the way, sorry, I'm interrupting myself very rudely. I promise that I will try and get this sorted out. I was prevented from doing that by providing service to a student, which became more important than trying to get this screen going. Secondly, now I've lost that point. I did not get to the library to put this on the system. I'm going to try and do that when we're finished here, so that you can, as from Monday or whenever, have access to it for 2 days at a time or something like that. I just couldn't do it lunchtime now. And thirdly, I didn't have time to get the Turnitin on screen for you either. So, but I thought helping out on a particular issue became more important, so I dealt with that. And if you want to know who the culprit is, come and ask me, I'll tell you. But I thought it was important to provide service to one of our students here, who will not have the luxury of being on campus as from this afternoon. And if there are niggling matters and we can resolve them, our admin staff were just around the corner here. But it took a bit of time to kick all the systems in place to do it. So that absorbed time. Okay, right. However, we've got a couple of models that we're going to look at. And that helps you with the decision making. Before you go and do all the research and the questionnaires and get your change plan going and what have you. So what goes on in the engine room? What goes on under the surface with my duck example? That furiously swimming bits, we've got to go back there and have a bit of a look so that we can have the duck or the swan gliding along beautifully. So let's go and have a look. We are refocusing on that. I'm going to look at some strategy models as well, going to look at organization direction, but I'm not going to spend too much time on strategy, corporate strategy and stuff like that. I'm probably going to go a bit easier on that. And preparing for change, not too much either. But I want to look at the strategy formulation aids. How can we really make sure that we are absolutely on a 2020 vision with where we want to go? Remember my example. We lost track of our objectives. Huh? Remember. So here goes. Okay, what are the models? Now we've got our good friend John Cotter in there again, and he has sort of pallied up with a guy called Schlesinger, and they've developed another model. We also have the Shinny and Bennis model, and then we have these guys that have become household names by now, Dunphy and Stace. But it's just a bit of a repeat. It's just a bit of a summary on some of the stuff. So let's have a look. And then we'll go much faster. Okay, but complicated. And remember, the idea here is that different strokes for different folks. What are you trying to achieve? What is the main, using the French words now, raison d'etre for what you are trying to do? In this particular case, if it's like a resistance to change, you have a serious problem with the resistance to change. Well, use a type of model which will deal with that. If you have a straight, normal, standard problem, Cotter's 8-step model is probably okay. If you have an extremely minor issue, really, oh man, I can solve that on the back of a cigarette box. A pack of 30s or a pack of 50s, you don't see that often nowadays, do you? But why use a 10-pound hammer to swat a fly? So go and do the old basic one of Louis. Unfreeze, change, refreeze. Few steps, that's what we want to do, folks. Let's go and do it. So be wise, economize with what you want to do. Use a model which is appropriate for the type of circumstances and what you hope to achieve. And this is what we're more or less starting to do here. So in other words, we've now become so blasé that I'm not only telling you to just stand on one leg, I'm asking you to dance on one leg as well. Because we can do that already. We can stand on one leg. We know the models. Now we're starting to use different models, more models, refining it. We're making progress. So here we are. We have to figure out whether this is something that we are looking into. What approach are we going to use? What are the situations that we're after? For example, lack of information. Are we dealing here primarily with lack of information and therefore unloved is unwanted? Huh? Don't like it because I'm not so sure what this is about. But it's because I don't have information. Or is it a participation and involvement thing which causes the resistance? I have not been consulted. Therefore, I don't like it. I'm going nowhere. Because you didn't ask me. Do we need a bit of facilitation? A bit of a pat on the back? A bit of boosting your ego a bit? Come on, folks, we all manage people, don't we? Different people need different things. Some guy need a big swipe in the chops to get him or her sorted. Okay, oh, we've got an anti-smacking law, sorry. But it doesn't apply to grown-ups, only kids. Huh? What? What? Or somebody who needs reassurance, a bit uncertain. Not sure where they're going. And they need a bit of reassurance, a bit of a comfy cuddle. And yeah, I'm sure you can do it. Come on, let me just help you a bit. Pat on the back. If you're a manager and you're not practicing the different approaches to deal with people, because we all have different personalities, you're not going to be a very successful manager very long. That I can guarantee you. You're a diplomat. You're a relationship person. First and foremost. And then all the other bits and pieces kick in. So you can use something like this, very straightforward, very basic, and say, right, let's try and do that. Okay, next one. Just continues. Do we need a bit of negotiation and agreement? Do we need perhaps a little bit of manipulation, just steering, guiding a person? Do we need some coercion? What do we really need? Where do we fit in with what we are trying to do? Okay.
Can you give an example of what manipulation might be?
You know what? I live close to a golf course, but I don't have any golf clubs, and I'm pretty useless at it. And John, you're an extremely good golfer, and you've got 2 sets of clubs because you've won the club championship. Why don't you join me, but bring your 2 sets of clubs along? Okay. I am a senior manager. I have access to golf courses and membership, but I don't really play good golf. And come along and teach me a bit, and you come in for free. I can sign in people, guests. Yeah.
You go along with.
Yeah, this is soft manipulation. I'm not talking about unethical or illegal stuff like that. Not at all. It's more in that realm of a bull dust baffles brains a bit, you know. You've got to ask again, well, what are we doing here? What's the urgency? How quick, how fast, how much, how soon? Does this have to be finished, done, dusted by Monday? The board's crazy. They want an emergency plan. They want something on the ground, and they want to see it moving by Monday. Now, we've all had those demands on us. That's when you work the whole weekend, starting now through to Monday morning, 4 o'clock, and just have a cat nap, and then you're into the board meeting 8 o'clock. And say, here we are. So, not too much involvement of other people, as an example. There's not much of an attempt to work on other stuff. Or is it slower and then it's different? What are the key variables? So here are some more bits and pieces, some pointers to guide you as to what you're trying to do. Remember, I'm using the word models. It's actually a bit of a misnomer. It's just like your crib notes when you were at school and you had a damn difficult test coming up. And you thought, oh, I've been out all weekend socializing and what have you. Now we've got this class test on Monday morning. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to try and write something on my ruler, or I'm going to write it on my arm here. And I'm just trying to do a bit of ducking and diving. These notes are those, which you just keep in your drawer to say, man, let me just refresh my memory a bit here, just to get a bit of a, again, where are we going? Ah, yeah. This is this continuum thing. So where am I? What are we doing? I've had a bit of a think about the amount of resistance. I've got that. I've got an idea of what we can do in terms of the data. How much data, or do we just need something, a bit of a rabbit pulled out of the hat? Just to get the board off my back and say, big letters at the top, draft. Draft. Gives me time to do more thinking. So what am I going to put in there? Okay. Right, next. Now, here's the first serious one. Shinny and Bennis, their model is more on strategic stuff. So if you are going to have to contend with rather strategic things, probably good to go and have a look at these guys. Because they have like, well, it's strategic and you're under pressure and what have you. And they say, look, it's force, it's coercion. Bang. You've got to look at rewards and punishments. The classic, you're either for us or you're against us. We've got the back against the wall. If you want to have a job, do this or walk the street. you sometimes have emergency things that you have to do. You have critical things which doesn't have a nice, easy-going, pally sort of, yeah, mates, let's have a drink in the bar first. Let's scratch our heads a bit about it. Let's play some ping pong and see what comes out. You don't have the luxury of a lot of time on your hands. Sometimes you do, but quite often you don't. And sometimes you've got zip. Some of these guys up there wanted Monday morning. What do you do? So this is perhaps a bit of a better base to use this. So, right, okay, right. If it's going to be fast, right, boom, it's this line over here. Direct, forcing, unilateral action, political moving, done. And you can see, remember I've talked about it a lot, and I've by the way, not touch, I've added these bits in. The model does not have this. I've added that in. I've modified the model, again, to fit what we are doing. So in terms of our terminology, in terms of our language, are we talking about the soft approach? Remember what I've done on the soft? Remember what I've talked about on the hard approach? I've talked about whether your scale is little or much, or fast or slow, or whether it's going to be temporary, a quick fix, or whether it's long term. You're going to change the logo. You're going to change the location of your organization. You're going to tie yourself to somebody else. You're kicking the ABs for touch because they're going to lose on Sunday, and you've decided to go with the Tall Blacks. Or whatever. Quite a big change. How will that affect you? Is it short-term, long-term? What is it? You can't go and do long-term stuff, long-term stuff by this quick fix stuff. It doesn't work. You jump out of the fire into the frying pan. So these are all the caveats. Be careful what you are doing. What will the consequences be? What will the effect be? What's going to be the best plan of action here? I just need some plan. I just need a few pointers to get me going on this. Because Peter is not here. I try to phone him and his voicemail says he's on holiday. I try to go to the library. I forgot it's a public holiday. Everything's closed. The internet's off because I forgot to pay my account. What do I do now? Thank goodness I've got these PowerPoints. I printed them out. I've got them somewhere in a drawer. I think it was day 3. Let's go and try and get an idea or two. That's all. So here we are. But you've got the context of all of that. So, force coercion, rewards or punishment, forcing people, unilateral action. I've heard you, but I'm not listening to you. Hard approach. Fast, quick, got to have some answers. So it might be something to consider. Remember, I'm starting to give you, as I said, these crib notes. It's not all very scientific and it's not all well thought through and it's not going to get all the applause you're after, but you've got to deliver something. So yank out these crib notes. Okay? Right, next. Not going to spend much time on Dunphy and Stace. We know what they are like. We know they've got some stuff, and this is just modified a little bit. Can we look at how we're going to do this? Are we going to have a developmental, slower transition in terms of their model? Are we going to have a more focused transition led by the leaders? Are we going to have a charismatic transformation? Find somebody who's a good talker in the company. Somebody who can sell you ice in Iceland. Spin doctor. We just need to get this thing rolling. We'll sort the fallout later. We're building the plane as we fly it. We heard one of our very big donation organizations, donors, is thinking of splitting their funds. And you've got to go and see that guy. You've got an emergency meeting with him this afternoon, and you only phoned this morning. You only heard it about indirectly too. What are we going to do? Life is a bit of a lemon, folks. You don't always have things on your terms and more than enough time in the world. Life is about one emergency to the next in many cases. are we so charismatic guy? Or, well, remember my frame breaking? I might have mentioned only once today, but let me just repeat that one quickly again. We have two types. I've been talking about shallow change, deep change. I've talked about slow and fast. I've talked about the scale. Now, first order, second order, all the same thing really. Now we're on to frame bending and frame breaking. And it's exactly what it says. You are just tweaking the existing system, and that'll serve your purpose. Or break the frame. Totally new. Not going to work what you've been doing before. So that's another term used by quite a lot of folk in the field. We're into either frame bending or frame breaking. First order, second order. Deep, shallow. All the same thing. So perhaps we need literally the commander, military style. Follow me, men. If you don't, you're going to be shot at dawn. Well, at least we've sorted that one out. 100 years later, we now have recognition for somebody who objected and was shot. I couldn't believe it. The British shot 300 people in the First World War who refused to take orders or who were objecting to what they were doing. 340 people. There's a memorial garden for all 340 now with their names, and there's a statue of, and the New Zealander who was involved, standing up for his beliefs, also honoured for that now. It was only revealed last week. I found it. Say again? I found that fascinating, that people are prepared to die for their belief in what they stand for, not just up and over the top. Right, but in any case, so these are tweakings and different bits of what we're trying to do. Okay. I've said that about 100 times now. You see it, you hear it, you do it, you remember it. Remember, I'm pushing the pedagogical principles as well, educational principles. There they are. Right. Not going to bother much. They talk about the frame breaking and the frame bending that I've been talking about. So just have a quick look before we go too fast. Turn around, frame breaking. It comes when you've had distrustful, demotivated people over a long time. You have poisoned them so long that there's no way out. They just don't believe you anymore. It's, on the other hand, this bit of like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's sometimes better to close a whole section down and don't touch it again. Or close it down and then reappoint people from scratch. It's the only way you can solve it. It's the only way you can solve it. And that is the frame breaking. But you must be very careful. You can look at it from a little bit of a different angle too. If you do too much of it and people start thinking that you've got the hatchet out, that you're just trying to decapitate people, trying to murder people, pardon the phrase, they're going to say, oh, we don't trust you anymore. So be careful how you interpret this. Now, I will next time give you a bit of stuff on Jack Welch at General Electric, and I have mentioned to you that one of the very good examples is General Electric. And Jack Welch is a classic example on how made over 200,000 people at General Electric redundant to save General Electric from the biggest closure of an organization in the US, one of the biggest. Talk more about that next time. I've got that information. Okay. Dunphy and Stace list 5 dilemmas. Here we are again. Is it adaptive or rational? Is it cultural or is it structural? Is it continuous or is it radical? Is it empowerment or leader focused? Is it social or economic? You will be using quite a bit of this to say why things are wrong with your group assignment. These are the bits that you're going to perhaps address. we are not in tune with what's going on. We haven't made decisions yet. There they are. These are like acid tests. Go and test what's going on. Are these the reasons or not? Try and figure out what the reasons are. Why isn't it working? Because. We're not providing answers. Assignment 2. Okay. Oi, shall I just skip past this one? Huh? We know it very well by now. Just a bit of a different one. Nankervis and his mates had this originally, and then Stacey Dunphy modified it, and then Denise Waddle modified it again. But this is, you can see, we can recognize quite a bit of it. Dictatorial, forced, participative, charismatic, collaborative, consultative, directive, incremental, transformational. Yeah, we've got all of that. It's just a bit of a different way to say, what's our strategy going to be? Let's take, for example, the participative evolution bit. Remember, I've talked about your organization being in fit or out of fit? Here we are. When an organization is in fit but needs minor adjustment, or is sort out of fit but time is available and key interests, group factors, you can do it. Or your organization is out of fit. That's the exact words I've used in your assignment. If it's out of fit, it means there is little time for extensive participation, but there's support for radical change within the organization. So I'm actually nudging you into a direction where I'm saying, get your bum off the seat. Be bold. Faint heart has never won the day. All this warm, fuzzy feeling and, we just mumble along, might not always work. Now's your chance for a more academic, intellectual exercise with a couple of friends to say, how can we really rattle the cage? Be bold. I'm not going to tell anybody what you've done. It's not going to be on TV. Maybe that is what you want to be, but you're afraid to do it. You're too worried about the stakeholders. You're too worried about what other people will say. Test these ideas in your group. If we do this, what do you think is going to happen, folks? What about this? Do you think this is so wrong that we just fire people? Be bold. It is a bit of a theoretical exercise. You've got a bit of, how do we say, artistic freedom. Freedom of speech. I'm only going to look at whether your argument holds water. Whether it is actually an argument which is outlandish and totally crazy is not that I'm really going to focus on. It's how you try and present the impossible. I don't want to go into the movies Mission Impossible, but go for it. So, this is where you find what we're looking for. Let's look at this one over here. Forced evolution, organizations in fit but needs minor adjustment, or is out of fit but time is available. Key interest groups oppose the change. Is that what you've got? So is that what we need to do? Or dictatorial transformation. Organization is out of fit. There is no time for participation. There is no support in the organization for radical change. But radical change is vital to the organization's survival and the fulfillment of its basic mission. Is that where you are? So please, folks, flip through your PowerPoints. You will have a goldmine of information in terms of what you're required to do. It's there. Just have to find it. Okay, enough said. So perhaps it's good just to make that note or a mental note. Day 3, number 2, PowerPoint 12. That is the trigger for our group assignment. You got it? Huh? Let's go. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of this because we've done this quite a few times now. And I'm just going to flip through it. It's a reminder. It's an even simpler process guide than a lot of the other stuff you've had. I'm a stickler for simplicity, and I haven't done much of that, but I often do like just one-liners. I give you one line. I give you one word. And I've only tried 1 or 2 of those in the class where I trigger you. Let's go again, just as revision. OCB, questions for Kelly. What is it?
Organisational system behaviour, citizens behaviour.
Bingo! Well done, got it. Good on you. Lovely. There we are. It's like these one word. Hey, what does it mean? I've got quite a bit of that I use, but I'll pull out those tricks in the next block. But you've got to be on the go with me. Okay, here we are. So, not going to worry much about this. We know what it is. Next one. You've seen this. It's a summary. John Cotter again. His 8-step process, just nicely in color. And you've actually seen some of that. I believe my colleague Andries used this. Because it's very common, and he's done that in terms of linking it up to change and teams and what have you. Because it's generic and it's common. But these are the 8 steps of Cotter. You've got it. Go back to that. Here is just a little bit more, like the crib notes added now. This is also an important bit for you. But remember, you're not going to give the how answers. But is our problem urgent? It's wrong and it's become urgent. You know, you've got something which was unimportant and not urgent. And then, because time progressed and you were procrastinating and what have you, it finally became important. But it's still not urgent. And then you finally end up with a red flag, but it's important and it's urgent. It's like now. You don't want to be there because it's tough stuff. But in any case, so what's going on? Market competitiveness or crisis or potential crisis, or there might be an opportunity that you guys have and you're not taking it. Why not? Why are you not taking the opportunity? That could also be part of your out of fit. You don't react to opportunities. Why? Because your management's too conservative? Because you don't have the means? You still run a paper system to figure out what's happened yesterday. Send notes around in the office. Don't use SurveyMonkey or just an email. Say, hey guys, what was wrong? I want answers in 10 minutes. If you're not answering in 10, I want to know why. That's a bit harsh, but you know what I'm talking about. So it's only identify the crisis, potential crisis, Put together a team of people, and that might still be part of your problem. We haven't got a team. That's part of our problem. We haven't got a team. We haven't got people who are skilled enough. Please don't tell me where you're going to find them and how you're going to recruit them, because then you're into the how bit. That's assignment number 2. Don't want to be there. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Part B, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Again, just please note, culture, all the way. If people don't make the new approach part of their behavior, you've lost. Okay, so here we are. Short version, but it's still John Cotter, and it's part of the book I had here yesterday where you can go and figure them out. You see Leading Change, John Cotter, 1996. Okay, next one. Oh, we know this one, don't we? Here's another one, just to give you a bit of a hand. How can we figure out where we are, where we're supposed to be going, and what we're supposed to be doing? You know that, and I've just shoved it in there again to put everything nicely together for you, because it's some revision we're doing, and we're also just putting a whole load of options for you. You've got 6 models here. Just flip through this one PowerPoint and you are reminded of the whole lot. Folks, by now, I hate searching for things, because my whole life is spent searching. Every single day of my life, I read reams of notes and papers and books and what have you, and I'm constantly searching for things. And I'm starting to build a little bit of aversion to that. I'm getting tired. I would read a couple of 100 pages every week. I would be looking for things for hours every week. So I nowadays have short call it sets of crib notes, like this PowerPoint. I know I'm looking at a bunch of change models. I want to figure out just quick, which one can work for me. It's like typical sort of management crisis stuff, you know. Board's looking for stuff tomorrow. I've got to find it now. But it makes life easier. So by just flipping through this, I can immediately find what I'm looking for and then spend energy and time sorting it out, instead of searching for a lot of stuff which gets you nowhere and which is just time consuming because it's not relevant and not applicable. Go to this, bam! Got 6 options, and they are the ones that are relevant to the environment I'm working in. I'm picking one of those. Done. I call them templates. My wife knows that. I talk a lot about templates. There are certain things that you do which have been sorted out. It's there. It's a template. You're going to go and do something. What's the template for that? I mean, if I can use that example. When we go to church, we have to leave at 9 o'clock. Otherwise, we're not going to get there at 9:30. Church starts at 9:30. So we've got to get up at 8 o'clock. Otherwise, we're not going to make it today. So the template is, I don't even have to talk about it. We get up at 8. Get all sorted out. Leave 9 o'clock. Don't have to argue or think or wonder, what shall we do? How? It's a fixed template. It's tried and tested. Makes life a lot easier if you have a lot of templates. It doesn't mean it's got to be boring and that you are stuck in a rut. But gosh, it just gives you so much more time to do other things because you don't have to think about these things. So this is one of those. Right. Not going to go slow through this. We've got it. We know by now that when you are doing strategic management, if I can just go one back, just there again, I've got to do the environmental scanning. I've got to look at what we are busy with. This is this bit over here. So I've got to get answers there. How do I get those answers? Because I want to know whether the environment's impacting on me, whether it is a necessity to formulate strategy. Shall I implement a new strategy? And then, of course, I know feedback through the champions. I finally need to know what we are doing. To know is to measure. No matter what you do, it's got to be there. It's boring. It's routine, but you've got to do it. Just in passing, when I did my PhD, I confronted my supervisor on this, and I said to him, Professor, I am getting absolutely bored to tears with all this stuff. I've got to repeat. I had about like 87 questions in my survey I did for my PhD. And he said to me, bad luck, boy. Every single question needs to be answered in terms of why you've asked it, what conclusions do you draw from it, what are the implications, what are the recommendations. And you do that for every single question, 87 times. At the end, you start summarizing every question's recommendations or every question's conclusions. And I said, but Professor, can't I just go to the final conclusions? I know where I want to go. He said, That's the process. Every single one. I still remember it today. So that you can get to the end. Okay, I'm not going to go through this again. We've done quite a bit of this by now. But again, what is your vision? What is your mission? Where are we going? Is it broad? Is it narrow? What is it? I don't have to go through these definitions again. If you still don't know what a vision is or what a mission is, goodness, you've done quite a few papers by now. But it's just there just to remind you. We need to know what we're going to be. Where are we heading? How do we get there? Our business, what is it about? How does it fit together? We've talked about that. You should have that. What is your mission statement? Is it okay? I mean, I'm hammering this a little bit, but are you still okay? Is that still what you want to do? Does it still fit? Remember, sometimes you need to go back to basics. What is our point of departure? It might have changed. So before you do all this work, are we singing from the same hymn book? It sounds rather awkward if people are singing different hymns simultaneously, unless it's a chorus in different voices. But you've got to have the same point of departure. Folks, this sounds silly, but please go and check. It costs very little to go and check in your real organization. Is this what we are at? Is this what we do? And here are all the bits. Who are our customers? What are the products? The markets, the technology, the concern, survival, philosophy, concept of who are we? Sounds sometimes rather awkward, but who are we? Concern for public image, concern for employees. Do we have all these boxes ticked? Don't have to bother about that. We know. Okay, I want to spend just a little bit of time on this and go to the mods. Now you've done all that, you've done all the homework, you've got it all sorted, you've got it all ticked. Now we're just ready to go. It's like the roadmap. You want to go to Welly. If you see the sign walk with, you've got a problem. You're not going to Welly, mate. So let's see whether we are trying to fix up and sort out our strategy by using the right means. I'm not going to bother about the exercises and stuff like that. We can just pass through that. Here's the first one. We have what we call the synergy matrix. And it focuses on the most significant strengths and weaknesses and what have you. So let's just go on to it. Here it is. The synergy matrix is one which you go and I've got examples over here where you can stick them in. And then just try and work out how much of that is en route in terms of what we want to do. We've got all sorts of things here. I, for example, had, sorry, I just have to read them. A new transition in technologies, rising demand for the products, deregulation, new entrants, reduced funding, for example, TV on air, alternatives in advertising. So we've done a bit of an analysis already, which revolves around some of our strengths, some of our questions and problems, and we stretch them a bit and analyze them a bit and see whether something can come up. So we're trying to just make some sense.
What was the M refer to?
Where are we?
The last two was M1 and M2. What is the M? I get the S, the W, the O, and the Z. On the left, on the top. Oh, the right.
Over here?
Yeah.
Weaknesses.
Yeah.
Weaknesses.
M.
Oh, M.
M1, M.
Oh, these are motivational bits. What can I do to really get going? You've got the columns again. Let me just go to the actual diagram. Not there, that's that. Let's go over here. Here we are. Now, you will recognize this one again, but just a different way of saying, where are we going? I can go, and this is what we call, remember, this is again, the strengths, opportunities, weaknesses. Just rejuggled instead of a different way of looking at the SWOT. What are our internal strengths? What are our weaknesses? You try and analyze what you know. Do you know enough about it? Can we address them in the correct way? Can we really move them along? And then the same with your opportunities and threats, and see where you can, what you can come up with. The only way I can think of something right now is, and I don't know, it's maybe a bit stupid. When you are spelling organization, you can spell it with an S or a Z, depending whether you use UK, Australian, New Zealand spelling or American spelling. It's still the same thing. But if you are doing a spell check on it and you are going to write something to an American organization and you use all this S stuff, they're not going to be happy. But it's still about the same thing. So you can use different ways and models just to see whether you're still okay on track, sort of thing. But that's another way of dealing with it. Just options. Remember, I'm just giving you the absolute final bit. Read a little more. This can go much faster. We need to know what we are doing. We need to have direction, and I've said it just now, and it's very simple. We want to go to Welly. If I see a signpost saying walk with, I'm not going to get there. There's no roundabout way unless I link up at Wellsford and go back via Helensville and finally end up in Cumeo and then past Henderson and then to the airport. But that's the only other way. But what a idiotic way, if I'm here in central Auckland, to head down to Welly. Go up to Wellsworth first and then take the road, the back road via Helensville. I must be a bit bonkers. So your strategy is normally the best, most appropriate way to get to where you want to be. It's a diagram, it's a map. Okay, so here we are. So you've got to figure out what's the best. And there's all sorts of bits and pieces in there. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but we know by now you've got what we call the big strategy, the grand strategy. And then you build it down, and you build it down, and you build it down, up to the day-to-day stuff. So here we are. Business strategy. For example, are we going to compete, or are we going to cooperate, collaborate? Fight them or join them. I mean, that's the simple stuff we use. Sometimes it's not worth it to fight because you are going to lose. Rather cooperate, rather work together. What's the classic one? If you can't fight them, join them. Might sometimes be hard to amalgamate your organization with another one because both are pretty weak and they're not really doing that well. But the two together, boy oh boy, could go places. And now we have a struggle because some of the people don't want to lose their positions and power and what have you and what have you and what have you. This, by the way, was Unitech's problem. We had it on a silver platter to amalgamate with AUT about 8 or 10 years ago now. 10 years ago. It was a done deal. And then the powers at the very top decided we're not going to relinquish our nice positions. We're not going to stand back, stand down. I want to be the boss, otherwise I don't join. Sound like kids play in the kindergarten. And that was exactly what it was. That's 10 years ago, folks. Happened. Okay. Or do you have a competitive structure? Or do you want to consolidate things and battle for market share? Or what are you going to do? The donor dollar. Okay, next one level down. Business strategy. What happens at our business level? How are we going to do things? What are we going to do? Do we have our leadership sorted? Do the guys know what we're doing at our level, not the big level? And then we get on to quite a nice one over here. I quite frankly think this is also one that is quite generic, which we have used quite a bit, in terms of just figuring out whether you are on a survival budget, whether you are on a leadership sort of track, or just want to stay in business. What do you guys want to do? Where are you focused? And then, of course, depending on where you put your money, you'll have to do certain things. For example, if you're in survival mode, it's not time to go and splash money on fancy cars and expensive trips overseas for the CEO. That's not done. And there's a lot of it. Sorry?
BPM then?
Business process reengineering, I would assume. Where is that?
That's down the red, enterprise-wide BPM.
Just point me, is it right or left? I don't see it.
On the right,
On the right?
second from the top.
Oh, enterprise business process management. You've got to look at and re-engineering your whole setup. You're literally re-engineering what you are doing. It's just other fancy words for change, but using a particular approach to deal with it. You are or rejigging about everything. Business process re-engineering is normally the term used. Thanks, Janine. Okay, I've talked about that. No need to worry too much about that. Cooperative, we've talked about that. The only bit that we have to have a quick look at over here is if you are aligning yourself in a strategic alliance, be careful, because you can see what happens here. Short term, long term, no more. I'm using the words deliberately. You are no more. You quite often have this type of getting into bed with, ending where we are talking merger, acquisition, takeover, weaker partner dies. Quite often happens. Got to be rather wide awake what the situation is. But organizations sometimes gobble others up, and they start off with a so-called, oh, you know, this is a strategic alliance. We're going to work together so nicely. And when you wake up, you're without a job and they've taken everything. Or they strip out all your assets and then close the few redundant people down.
Isn't that what Philip Glenn did? That was in the paper the other day in England. The top shop guy. There was a big thing about it saying how he plundered, basically allowed a whole big chain of companies to go down and then sold them for nothing.
Miriam, I must confess, I didn't read it. I don't know about it, but it sounds like a familiar way of doing things. One of our local heroes, Graham Hart, has done quite a lot of that. That's where his $7 to $8 billion comes from. He's been pretty good at spotting companies which he can plunder and then finally spit out the bits that are left. And he's got all the nice bits. Graham Hart's known for that. But, sorry? Of course, there are advantages too, but
I worked in a strategic alliance with stuff with the youth one-stop shop. We share buildings, leases, operational costs. We deliberately set up that way as a strategic alliance because it strengthens each of us.
no, I'm not.
You've got to be careful.
Thanks, Lewis. That's the only bit I wanted to say. Be careful, because that might be at the back of the head somewhere. Or it might start leaning in that direction. But it can work wonderfully well.
It works very well.
Oh, yes, it can. But be careful. No. Absolutely right. Okay, got it. Thank you for mentioning that. Appreciate that. And thanks for the comment. So all I'm saying is it's like getting into bed with the devil. You know you've got a very serious case here. It's like wrestling a polar bear or like swimming in waters with a crocodile.
Can we just talk about that a minute? Because I was quite interested in Lois's.
Yeah, sure, Janine. Please, go.
One of the things, I can see how pragmatically it can be really beneficial with lease cost and administration and all that sort of thing. But have you got your programs aligned? Yeah. Because we both use the same, like, population.
Yeah.
So we both use the at-risk group. So they work on the health and social services and then the education focus. And so we get students coming to us because they're disengaged in education, but we also know that they have health and social service needs. And we, because we're in the same building, we're strategically located together, we can introduce them to a health service. They get to be coming into their service that are disengaged in education, and they can bring and they can come to us and say what we do here. So it's a very dynamic and very clear role. Very clear. Yeah, you will have memorandums of understanding and all that so that you're well covered off in that space. But I mean, I think it's actually quite easy across the board. Here's what it really teaches alliances because of, I mean, it's attractive to funders for one thing. Do you collaborate with funding? Yes, particularly, we don't, not in the setting up, we can definitely, so the funding set up to build it was a shared between the two organisations and the funders were happy to fund it because they could see that they were doing more bang for the buck, if you like. yeah, because of the way it's sort of set up. So, it's a, yeah. I mean, we do be careful. I mean, during my time, there was one manager that helped me take services to the sort of take over us, but, you know, and to have a strong memorandum in place.
Good, good. Thank you, Liz. Wonderful comments there. Thank you for just pushing that along a bit, Janine. Appreciate that. I'm not always sure where people have needs, and by just alerting us to that, thanks a lot. It helps us to focus attention where you want it. While she was talking, I was thinking about something else. We're talking management. We're talking management principles, how to manage your business. But we're also alerting ourselves that we are in a jungle. This is the corporate jungle, whether it's not for profit or profit is immaterial. It's a jungle out there, folks. I've often said it and people don't like it when I say it, but I'm saying to you, there are more sharks on dry land than there are in the sea. You don't know you're going to get bitten because you don't expect it. In the sea, you know there are sharks, and you are alert and you watch them and, you do all sorts of evasive tactics and what have you. But on dry land, they're not supposed to be sharks. When you wake up, you're bitten in half. And the bit that Lewis mentioned is exactly that. Be careful. Watch it. Take over artist. I love it. Good. So here we are. So you could do all sorts of things to enhance the change and improve the organization and its effectiveness and all these nice little things. But be careful of the dark side. Because we are playing in a difficult area. There are a lot of sharks out there. A lot of them. Okay, we're heading well into finishing off, folks. Another one. Is there cooperation? Reducing financial risk, reducing political risk, achieving a competitive advantage, having market access. In your case, Lewis, I mean, we're just making a bit of a jump. How would you say which one here is sort of helping you?
Well, manufacturing capability, particularly, I mean, where we work better, do a better job.
Uh-huh.
Market access, because we have kids coming through both sets of doors, if you like. Certainly reducing financial risk with all of them, actually.
Okay, because I mean, we're talking cooperation here as cooperative strategies, but that's the result of an alliance or a strategic partnership or whatever. But these are the fallout elements of your cooperation. And it's sometimes very, very, very important to go and sit down and add up the pluses and the minuses. So you're getting into bed with these fellows. What's in it for us? What's the danger stuff? Where do we have to be careful? What's going to happen? Think very carefully. And please read between the lines. But I don't have to start giving you sort of strategic teaching here in terms of politics and organizations. They're sometimes not what they profess to be. Sharks, big ones. Be streetwise. It's the only bit I can say here. And no matter where we are, what we do, just be streetwise in your business setups. I mean, how on earth did an organization like Pumpkin Patch go and lose $39 million? And for this current year, $15 million. Why? Because they were sold down the river by the Aussies. They've had a massive disaster in their Australian venture and in their American venture. If you start reading, it's going to be a case study pretty soon because they're about history, a lot of it. And I'm starting to just pick up a bit on that. There's another one, sorry, just a quick digression. We all know Michael Hill, the girl's best friend. The diamond business Michael Hill is in. Michael Hill switched his business into the shoe industry. He went into shoes. And then hopped into Aussie and got kicked for touch, pardon the pun. Because he thought, here I am, bingo, off I go, and made a horrible hash of it. Because the cooperation and the alliances that he formed and being out of touch with that type of market, I mean, selling diamonds and rings and jewelry is very different from shoes. It didn't work. And we can talk more about that and use the app and look at the applications when we look at block 2. What you guys are doing, how you're doing it, and how we can sort things out. Okay, nearly finished. So look at your functional strategies, more grassroots level. And then, of course, the tough stuff. That's why you get paid the big money when you're the boss. That's why you carry the can and get blamed for anything that goes wrong. That is that famous, the buck stops here. And I didn't even know there was a buck. No? Oi, but he's a smooth talker. I nearly killed myself laughing. I think it was yesterday, the day before yesterday. I said, he's been telling so many stories. If you stitch them together and add a tail, he's a weasel. That's what they said on television. I nearly killed myself. I thought it was excellent. So that's the added on bit, Shannon. Okay. And then we've done this. It's just, we've virtually caught up with where we've been since day one. We've gone all the way to your immediately previous set of slides is the whole bit of resistance to change. So I thought I'll just add that again. And here we go again. Why don't people like it? We are creatures of habit, so it's disrupted. If they switch me into another job, I lose confidence. Don't want to do it. I'm going to lose the control I've got. The timing is absolutely poor because I wanted to go on extended leave, take some time out, and they said, no, your job is really the champion, the kingpin to drive this. And I wanted to go on a world golfing trip with all my mates. It's going to be about 6 months. I've been saving for it for years. And now they want to start implementing this exactly the day we're going to leave. So I'm just against it, mates. I'm going to think up every single possible factor I can to sunk it. Have it sunk. Because I want to go on my golf trip. Timing's exceptionally poor. Okay, work overload. They're just lumping more work on me. This thing of job enrichment is quite often rubbish because it's job enlargement actually, which means I'm just doing more with less. And that's very prominent in this business. Lack of purpose. Just don't know what the heck they're doing. Where are they going? Where are they heading? This is just some crazy plan somebody dreamt up. And of course, then you have the negative outcomes. You have feelings of inadequacy, fear of failure, challenging values, There we are. We've done all of that. I don't have to deal with that because that is the very end, but I thought it's a good way to stop. Folks, we've heard a lot. We've gained a lot of information. It's now time to act. It's now time to say, this thing needs to fly. It's now time to move from inertia to action. So you got to start doing the real bit to change your organization. There is scope for improvement in any organization. So regardless of all the theory that we've been talking about, regardless of all the mumbo-jumbo we've been involved in and what have you, and the exercises and your assignment and what have you, just go back home and ask yourself, is there scope for improvement? Where do I start? And this last slide is literally the one. Just tick them off for yourself. Is there anything that needs to be done? Is there any urgency? What are the reasons? Okay, you do force field analysis. Do I need to talk to other people to get this going? Will I find people saying, hey, you've been to this fancy course? You've listened to that crazy little professor? You mentioned it's Pieter Nel. I Googled him. He's a bloody mad idiot. Now you're coming back with all these ideas, crazy stuff. Forget it. We just carry on as per normal. We've been good without the course you've done. We'll be good without it. Huh? So when you come back with your wonderful new ideas and knowledge, what's going to happen? You start needing alliances, people to be involved. You've got to start showing why you want to do this. And you've got to convince others, present ideas. And then just check that you haven't got a harebrained idea, which is just a crazy thing which somebody said, or Peter said, try it, and you think, yeah, let's go. Like, what? I must have fallen on my head for that one. And then lastly, no matter what you want to do, good relations, good leadership, and be mindful of culture. If you take nothing away from our whole course to date, if you want to do something, get your leadership on board. Make sure you have good relations. And thirdly, be mindful of the culture of the organization. Only that. Nothing else. If you are mindful of that, it'll take you a very, very, very long way to do what you are doing well. And that's it for the day. My song's out. I'm finished. Questions? Leadership, culture, and relations. Yeah. Those are the three most important bits of all of this. More questions?
Peter, with your diagram that includes lots of the theory,
Mm-hmm.
is the first half of that a good basis for the group assignment?
Yes, perfect. Spot on. Perfect.
So environment, diagnosis, organizational direction, strategy, possible target for change, the nature of the change.
Absolutely right. You've got it. Good on you. Perfect. It's literally the first half. Setting the scene. It's all the why questions. Absolutely right. Great stuff. Makes me feel good because then it encapsulates very nicely what we've been doing to date. Thank you.
And then the second half
Is the how. Get it going. Do it. Implement it. Sort it out. Make sure you've got plans in place to evaluate, to monitor, give feedback. It's all the second half. And of course then the second half of the second half is actually your refreshment of your own leadership. Will you be able to do all of this? All these fancy bits that you are now espousing with such enthusiasm. Can you do it? That's the second half of the second half. Okay? More questions? Have I exhausted your questions too? Have I exhausted you? Because I'm ready for another round.
I've got a question.
Yes.
So we've just gone through a period where we've had quite a number of staffing changes, and largely there were tweaks in the organisation, moving people to different roles because of either growth or development or whatever. And what I'm finding now is that some of our systems and processes that previously worked don't work in the new order. And I'm wondering, what you would recommend in terms of reading around that, in terms of the implementation.
It's doing an audit. It's doing an audit of where you are now with outmoded or not up to scratch tools, doesn't have enough grunt. Go and do an audit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just using an extremely stupid example. When I started out in my career with this stuff, which I hate, as you know by now, I was on a team, being one of the fairly young Turks at that stage in my organization, where the senior guys said, so you guys are talking about computers. You're talking about this stuff called this desktop stuff, which this upstart was talking about. Nah, we don't think so. But we finally convinced them. And then they came up and said, well, look, it sounds rather expensive. Why do you guys want hard drives in these computers that you want to buy? Just use floppy disk system only. Should be good enough. And for Pete's sake, you've told us that these hard drives can take 20 megs. You will never fill that up in 2 lifetimes. That's what the senior wise guys said. They were the senior professors at that stage, and we had a lot of respect for them. Well, that's where they lost a lot of respect for them. They didn't have the vision of the future. But we finally convinced them, being the young Turks, a couple of us, and we had just graduated with our PhDs and stuff, so we were very confident and very young, and come on, go, we need this. And they finally said yes. Sorry, long story. Imagine you've got a couple of those in your business, trying to get your HRIS systems up and running and sort of serviced. You can't. I mean, just a Word program nowadays in full swing is about 100 megs. So I'll fill up 5 times that little old computer of mine just with the Word program. I haven't put a single word of data on it. Nothing. Anyway, so, sorry, a bit of a long story. But do you have the grunt in those systems? Do you have the grunt in the staff? Do you have the grunt in terms of the metrics? And that's what we are talking about here, it's metrics. Evaluation of the tools you have. And you can go through all the tools, like the computer systems, the people systems, the project management where you deal with things, your accounting systems, blah, 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 blah. So go and evaluate them in terms of what is required of what you are trying to do. You might be trying to do too much. Another example happened here at Unitec. A few years ago, I had quite a fight with quite a few of the more senior people saying that, we don't need these professors around here. They're just money grabbers, and they wander around with fangled ideas which doesn't seem to fit anywhere and what have you. And one of the finance guys, obviously being counters, the guy said, look, in a meeting in my face, I was at a fairly senior management meeting at that stage, and he forgot that I was a professor because I was a head of department. So he was talking to heads of department to think about new ways of generating money and blah, 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 blah. And he forgot that I sat there with 2 hats on. And he said, look, if we get rid of these professors, then, for example, get rid of 1 professor, we can appoint 2 lecturers. We'll get much more done. So I took a deep breath and then said to him, you know what? There's no way in the world that 2 Volkswagens or Toyota hatchbacks, call them what you like, can perform like 1 Ferrari. Argument over. So, do you have the grunt of the staff to do what you want to do? Just as another one. Your computer processes, your actual admin processes. We might have, for example, I'm thinking just one last quick one. You may have a system where you are entering data on your list of sponsors or people who could be donors and what have you. And all of that is done like absolutely manually. Every single address and every single email is just typed in by hand. Hang on. I mean, you could scan all of that, of course. So, but you still do it by hand. So perhaps you could make the jump to move over to a scanning process where you can just scan stuff, scan documents, I mean, there are 100 of just silly ideas that I'm just dreaming up in terms of the type of question you ask. But it could be tricky, and it needs quite a bit of drilling down, quite a bit of analysis to really find out where the real problems are. And don't underestimate the resistance to change. Remember, we have people who don't want to do things.
We've just got a new contracts at work now. We've moved on to results-based accountability reporting. And so we went through this really interesting exercise of working backwards. So we started with the outcomes that we're to achieve. And so we worked backwards. So what are all the steps that we need to do to achieve those? And then whose job would that be? And we worked backwards, and that was really useful.
Great.
And it helped us kind of get rid of all the fluffy things that we did. We don't get paid for those. So it's stopped doing.
No, thanks, Victoria. Also a good idea. Okay, folks, any more questions? Any burning questions? Going, gone, goodbye. See you next time. Keep well, travel safe. Don't hesitate to contact me. Remember, if I am not informed, I don't know you've got a